everyone. Happy Monday. It is Tracy coming to you live from Golden Dog Adventure Company headquarters. And I am here with one of our community members, Christine. How are you, Christine?
I'm good. How are you doing, Tracy?
Good. Thanks so much for joining me today. I'm really excited to tell your story because I think there is a lot of really interesting information that you need to share. And I think, this is going to be a story that people are not going to be very much aware of. And I think it's something that needs to be told. And I want to share with people this process you went through, this battle that you took on to change a New Hampshire law because of what you experienced going through your divorce proceedings. So I want to let our audience know to buckle up. And to let everybody know that Christine has agreed to have full disclosure because this is kind of a hairy thing that she's going to share with us, and it's very personal. I had a very hard time going through the information this morning. There may be some tears shed, so just giving everybody fair share. I do have my Kleenexes here by me. This is a very personal story too, and I've known Christine for a while. She actually used to be a client of mine when I used when I had a pet sitting company. So I know these dogs. They were very near and dear to my heart because they are very, very special, very sweet. And what happened to them should not have happened. And I commend you, Christine, for taking this on. I know this was a long journey for you, and I know you're going to share your story with us today. But I think maybe the best thing to do would be to just start at the beginning. Give us some context, surrounding the divorce. You decided to divorce your now ex-husband, and you had two dogs between the two of you. Mm-hmm. And as most people may know, dogs are considered property in the state of New Hampshire and in most 50 states, not all 50 states. But can you tell us a little bit about what transpired? You're getting a divorce, and you split property in a divorce, and you have to decide what to do with the dogs. So if you want to take it from there and just kind of let us know your story.
Yeah. So a little over 5 years ago, actually it might be 6 now, I was going through the process of getting a divorce and a separation, and we had decided to go through, instead of going through traditional divorce proceedings, we used a mediator to kind of come up with the terms for our settlement divorce decree. It was a fairly amicable divorce, at least from my side. And so I thought it was okay to go ahead and continue sharing the dogs, Jack and Penny, with my ex-husband. Up until that point, he had been a good caregiver, I would say. He did not purchase the dogs. Actually, I did all the purchasing of the dogs, the vet bills, the training. So I was the primary caretaker. But again, I wanted to go ahead and let him still have time with them. So we agreed to share custody where once a week we would exchange the dogs. They'd spend 4 days with me, 4 days with him, and everything was moving along fairly well for a time. The first incident that occurred was actually in 2019. The dog, when I went to pick up the dogs, Jack had a pretty severe wound to his left side. He had been taken to the emergency vet. They shaved him down. You could see all the puncture wounds. My ex-husband at the time told me that his new girlfriend had a dog, had two dogs, and one of them attacked Jack. They got into a scuffle. So at that time, it was a one-off incident. The other two dogs were not living in that house, as far as I was aware. So we continued on, per the divorce decree, sharing the custody of the dogs. About, I guess it was 2020 or 2021 is when things really started to escalate. After the divorce, Jack was diagnosed with Cushing's disease as well as diabetes. This led us to have him on multiple medications that he needed twice a day, including insulin shots, Vetrol, some pretty life-sustaining medications. And unfortunately, my ex-husband continued to show up to pick up the dogs and need the medications from me. He wasn't supplying them. He wasn't buying them, which, if he didn't have these on hand, of course, I'm going to give my supply to him. My ultimate goal is to make sure the dogs are okay. So that continued on. And then once again, I went to go pick up the dogs, and Jack had massive, massive wounds, this time to his neck. One of the two dogs that was now living in his house had once again attacked Jack. He again ended up in the emergency vet, pretty large puncture wounds to the neck and the flank, which I think I sent you photos of.
Yeah, why don't we show those, Christine? You can kind of talk us through them here. Let's see. All right, so this is a healthy Jack and Penny. And what's your third dog's name now?
Charlie.
Okay, so these are before pictures, I'm assuming, or are these after pictures?
The ones on the left are the before, and the picture of the three dogs myself are most recently. So this is after.
Okay, so yeah, let's go through these
so,
here.
So everybody knows Jack is alive and healthy.
Yes.
So
thank goodness.
Start with that. This is actually the last attack, this photo right here, but it's very similar in nature to the other attacks that occurred. Once the first attack happened, I was obviously very concerned. Like I said, about 1.5 years passed and another attack occurred. That is a point at which I actually went to the court and petitioned to have my divorce decree modified so that I could take custody of the dogs back for all the reasons I listed above. My issue was that in the state of New Hampshire, divorce decrees cannot be modified with regards to property, which is what animals are classified as in the state of New Hampshire. I had a tremendously difficult time finding representation. I think I called close to 30 attorneys before I finally had one single individual call me back and was willing to take my case on. And that was Dan Corley out of Concord, New Hampshire. So we went to court multiple times. And essentially, at the end of the day, the judge said, I just need a way to change the divorce decree for you. Give me the ability. What he was trying to say to us is that there were no laws to protect the dogs. There was no way he could modify anything. It was just set in stone. So, with as much research as we did and as much digging as we did and what we brought to the court, the judge in his final notification actually almost apologized to me in his ruling, stating that because the laws were written the way they were, that there was absolutely nothing I could do. And during the course of these proceedings, people would say, well, just don't give the dogs back. Don't give them back, which is exactly what I did. At one point, I finally decided absolutely not. They can throw me in jail. They can give me fines. They can do whatever they need to do. My dogs aren't going back into that house. So that was in November of 2021 that I took that stance. And of course, I spent many, many days waiting for somebody to come and arrest me because I was told by my lawyer that was actually a possibility. So that was interesting. Yeah. So my ex-husband had to wait a full 2 months before he could enforce a, violation of the divorce decree on me, essentially. So that did come to pass in January. I was told that we would be having a hearing, that I needed to come into compliance and ultimately return the dogs to Ross. So it was after the third trial or the third hearing that we decided I needed to change the law.
And that wasn't an easy process.
No, it wasn't an easy process, but it also wasn't unattainable. I mean, I think it's something that just about anybody could do if you just continue to persevere.
Well, and tell us a little bit about that process, because I'm not sure people are familiar with what it takes to change a law in New Hampshire.
So I'm sure there's multiple ways, but the way I did it is I actually reached out and hired a lobbyist that my lawyer knew of, who also kind of champion animal welfare and things of that nature. His name is Rick Newman out of Seabrook, and he's a pretty high profile lobbyist. He usually handles much, much bigger corporate cases. I think I was one of the only personal cases he ever took on. And he was very receptive to me, I guess we should say. He lowered his fees. I mean, a lobbyist is not cheap by any means, but he tried to work with me. So the first thing we did was, of course, identify the language of the law that needed to be changed. So that's when we honed in on HB 1103, which was the current divorce laws in the state at that time, and looking to have it amended to read that going forward, divorce decrees could be modified solely for the ongoing welfare of companion animals. So,
and so, okay, so let's just go back here a second. So I just want to make sure this is clear to everybody. So again, in the state of New Hampshire, pets are considered property.
mhm.
So my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, is had you decided in the beginning that you did not want your ex-husband to have custody, they would have been your dogs because you brought them to the relationship.
Correct.
But you obviously, you did not see any issues. You had, your ex-husband had a good relationship with the dogs prior. It wasn't until these other dogs entered his life that there was a problem. So just, I want to let people know, just to learn from what Christine has gone through, is that if you are splitting from your significant other due to irreconcilable differences, and maybe you're leaving them because they didn't treat the pets right, if you brought those pets into the relationship, those pets leave with you. That is your property. That's the way it works in the state of New Hampshire. But Christine decided to have joint custody of this property, basically. And it didn't go as she anticipated, and that's why she had to go down this road, because that divorce decree was final. She had to find a way to change it, and it took her a very long time to find partners in that fight. One of whom was Jerry Lee Zezela, who we know very well because she is also at the head of Elder Pet, which was one of our charitable partners a couple of years ago. And you hired the lobbyist, you found a lawyer to work with you. And now it's my, if my memory serves, you emailed several lawyers to work with you and only one lawyer answered. Is that correct?
Yeah, emailed and called. I didn't just limit it to lawyers at that point. I sent the email giving the background of the case, photos, and what I was up against, also to just general legislators in the state. I came across Jerry through the Governor Sununu's Council on the Humane Treatment of Animals. So they have a contact list on their website of all the members that participate in monthly meetings. So I emailed every single one of them as well. And Jerry was actually the only person who responded to me from that circle.
And she's amazing, so I'm not surprised that she responded.
Yeah, and it was great. They allowed me to come up to one of their meetings. My mother and I both attended, explained our situation, and there were quite a few people that were ready to help in any way that they could. Everyone from the director of the SPCA to obviously Jerry, some of the sheriffs in the state were there to lend me support as well. They weren't technically allowed to lobby for me per se, but they at least provided me a platform and lots of great ideas and helpful information to try and keep pushing it forward. And I wouldn't be surprised if in the background they were kind of talking to some people.
Yeah,
So.
I wouldn't be surprised either, knowing Jerry. She's a mover and a shaker. So, okay, so remind me, what was the time frame from when Jack had his first attack to when you decided that you were not giving the dogs back and risking being arrested? What was that time frame there?
So the first, I filed for an ex parte motion. I believe it was in June of 2021. After that, an attack occurred about 2 months later is when one of the major attacks occurred. I went to trial again. It was thrown out. So that would have been November. And November is when I decided not to give the dogs back.
And then from that point to when the law was actually changed, I mean, how long were you going against the rules? I'm curious.
Technically going against the rules, just under 2 months as far as being at risk of being arrested and fined for contempt of court. That's what the charge was that was filed against me, was contempt of court. So after the final ruling, I did come into compliance. My lawyer said that you can't keep poking the bear, essentially. Let's focus on getting the law changed. After that, the law was passed in the House and Senate in June of 2022, and it just went into effect January 1 of 2023.
So, and let's actually show what that law looks like here so people can be familiar. Let me just see if I can call it up here. And I may or may not be able to, because the way this does sharing, it's a little tricky. Nope. All right, let me try something else here. Give me 1 second, everyone. Just finagling things here. No. Okay, here we go. All right, so I'm going to try to blow this up here so people can see it. Let's get this a little. Actually, we'll go. All right. So this is what was changed right here, this part here.
Yeah.
So it says, upon petition of either party, the court may review and modify the property settlement limited pursuant to this paragraph, taking into account the ongoing care and well-being of the animal. So animals, in this case, Jack and Penny were still considered property, but you know, it's strange because it seems, and correct me, because obviously I'm not a lawyer, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems strange that pets are still considered property, not really being seen as a sentient being here. So, I mean, can you describe a little bit about this paragraph here? I mean, they're still seen as property, but it's hard to wrap my brain around.
It's incredible how much one little sentence can change what we're allowed to do to protect our animals. Essentially, you know, the way it was written and the way that we chose to word the amendment was to ensure or to give us as much of a chance to get this law passed. When you're dealing with divorce and animals, legislators are very, very hesitant to make sweeping changes to give them rights in the same manner that you would children, which, you know, understandable to some degree, but to me, these are my children. So
yes, of course. Yeah.
So I kind of feel like this is just a progression forward, and maybe eventually we will see them, be given more rights as we move along. But at least this takes them out of that category of, you know, being a boat or a couch or an end table. What was shocking to me is that, you know, let's say I did share a boat with my ex-husband, and every time that boat was returned to me, there was something wrong with it. It had an engine failure, had dents or things like that. At that point, I could have taken him to court for damages, for property damages.
Really?
My dogs were being returned damaged every time. And I had no recourse. What's interesting is, you know, people have asked me before, who did I turn to beyond just a lawyer, beyond the commission? I did go to the police a few times, and they were horrified when I showed them the photos. But again, their hands were tied, so they would refer me to the animal control officer. The animal control officer, as much as they wanted to help, I think was very scared to take this on as well. So they said there was nothing they could do. I kept pushing and pushing on that. It went to the district attorney to see if they could file charges against my ex-husband for animal cruelty, because essentially it kind of fell right under that law. And they weren't willing to touch it. So it kind of shows you how it was a very prickly subject for a lot of people. Yeah. And the people that you would think could help you just were too scared or didn't want to get embroiled in something like that because it's seen as messy. So again, in writing that amendment, you know, I tried to think of it in a way that it wouldn't create too much additional work for the court system either. Okay. You know, limiting to amending it for the care and welfare of animals makes it very specifically defined. So you aren't going to have lots of frivolous cases coming into the courts now that a divorce decree can be modified. So
wow. Well, and I'm sure during this entire time, very stressful. You mentioned roughly 5 years since you started the divorce proceedings. At any point, Did you say, I can't do this. I'm worried about being arrested. I've got my dogs back. My ex-husband has given me full custody. I'm just gonna let this go.
No,
No.
no. Oh, see, that's where I'm going to get teary. No, because it was important. It was important to get this law done. I didn't know if Jack was going to still be here by the time this law passed, but that didn't stop me. Because whether Jack benefited from this law or not, I thought it was important to change it because, I mean, I don't know. I had the time. I don't want to say I had the time and the money and the resources, but it was important enough to me to get it done. Maybe so in the future, somebody else doesn't have to go through all that.
Yeah.
I don't know that everybody has the luxury of being able to do what I did and
Or
take
even understanding the process, or having the connections, or like you said, the means to even start this change.
Yeah. And I think I hinted to you at one point as well, I don't want to make this about more than just animal welfare, right? But I do think there was a large component of control in that being the reason for not giving up the dogs, keeping that one last connection to me that I so desperately wanted to sever. So I also thought that was a very, very important piece of it. In the future, if someone else finds themselves in this situation where their animals are being used to manipulate somebody, at least we can help eliminate that as well.
Yeah, and I can't imagine you're the first person to experience this, obviously, and you won't be the last. I think, as I recall, when you and I were talking, did you say that you had done some research into other states' laws to see if you had found similar cases or laws that had been changed in this similar way?
I it almost became a second job for me, every day and night, researching animal welfare laws across the country. There are only 2 states before this law that would allow for property settlements to be changed in regards to dogs. One was Alaska and one was California. I actually brought those statutes to my lawyer and we presented it to the judge when trying my case. But because it wasn't originated in New Hampshire, they couldn't be utilized. But what it did teach me is that we're very, very slowly moving towards adopting better animal welfare legislation.
Yeah.
So,
and with people like, I think you said your lawyer's name was Rick Newman.
Dan Corley was my lawyer. Rick Newman was my lobbyist.
And Jerry Lee, key people like that it took you a while to find, but key people like that in the state of New Hampshire who are making a difference. And, like I had told you when we talked offline, I wasn't surprised that Jerry got back to you because she really is a force to be reckoned with. And it's, I feel very fortunate that we have people like that working on our behalf. But I think the biggest lesson that I took away from this is that truly one person can make a difference in the life of a dog. However, you've probably made the difference in the life of many dogs, many cats, many other animals, barn animals. I mean, I'm assuming animal in the law refers to all animals owned by an individual. Would that be accurate?
Technically, just use the word companion animal.
Okay, so it doesn't include like horses, rabbit, cows.
It can.
Farm type animals. Okay, I wasn't sure how a companion animal was designated. So
yeah, I think cows may be a little trickier, unless letting them in on the couch, which would be.
This is my emotional support cow.
Right.
Well, listen, we've got a couple comments here. Let's see. Michelle says, kudos to you, Christine, for pushing forward for this change. What a horrific process to have to watch and go through. I agree with you, Tracy. I'd love to see changes away from our beloved pets as property. They are so much more. As Christine said, for a lot of us, they are our kids. Absolutely, Michelle. I believe Archie, this is Susan. I believe Archie ended up at a rescue in Arkansas as the result of a divorce. Makes me want to look up the laws in Arkansas just to try and get a better idea of the circumstances. That's interesting, Susan, that you're bringing that up. Interesting. Okay.
Can you give me a little background on that, Tracy?
Yeah, so Archie is a rescue that Susan just adopted from Mary's dogs.
Okay.
And she said that he came from a rescue in Arkansas, and she thinks he's a result of a divorce, but she's not 100% sure. So it
Oh,
looks like she's going to try and look up the laws and just see there if she can find out anything additional. Um, yeah, I'd be curious too, Susan, if Archie was given up by choice or if made to be given up. That kind of leads to a bigger question mark. But I kind of feel like Christine is our authority right now, and we're very fortunate to have her as a member in the community. I've encouraged Christine to go out and do TED Talks. I don't know where she's going to take this, but I really feel that she has a platform here that is very, very important, what she's accomplished. I know that you've already talked to somebody, I think they called you out of Maine, who's going through a similar type of situation and reached out to you for some advice, some support.
yeah. She was in a little bit of a different situation, but at the end of the day, it has to do with, animal rights, property rights, her ability to retain a dog after a fiance had passed away. And I was able to give her a little bit of guidance, but I think the most important thing was just being there to listen and to hear the story. So
I would agree. Well, I think without further ado, do you want to let those sweet little loves in and we can say hi to them before we part ways? I hear them barking to come in.
I know. Penny's been scratching on the door.
Okay, yeah, bring them in. Guys, if you have any additional questions too, feel free to let us know. If you have any comments at all, we just really wanted to make people aware of what had happened. Oh, there we go. Oh, look at the colors.
She's
pretty.
Fancy. This is Penny.
And so she's now how old?
Penny's now 13.
Now, was she ever attacked or was it just Jack?
She was attacked. Now, my ex-husband denied her ever being attacked. However, I also entered photographs of bite wounds to Penny's head. I think another thing to state, obviously, this is a little tiny dog, right? She's, I think, about 15 pounds. Yeah. The two dogs that were attacking mine were 50 and 60 respectively. Jeez. So, and let me show you Jack.
Okay.
Jack got up from his nap.
Also, one thing that Christine did not mention is that Jack was attacked right next to a 1-year-old who was on the floor. Fortunately, the 1-year-old was safe. Thank goodness. Jack took the brunt of it. But very interesting situation to have that type of dog in a house with a 1-year-old.
Yeah. Terrifying. Yeah, actually, the judge even mentioned that during one of the hearings. Flat out said, "Aren't you concerned about your 1-year-old child being attacked?" Exactly. I'm surprised that someone didn't remove the child or remove the dog, but maybe because an incident had not happened with the child, that there wasn't a leg to stand on. Perhaps, I don't know. Yeah, it's that, and again, that's where it racks your mind. Why won't you just give up Jack and Penny to a home that they're well taken care of and safe in? And that's where I always go back and think that was a sign that it was about control, not being able to let go. I think you're right. But this is Jack. Sorry, this is. And now how old's Jack? Jack is 14. He's going on 15. Oh. I can't believe how much he's been through, and he's just a trooper. And now, is he, 100% healed? Does he have some ongoing things that you have to manage because of the attacks? It's hard to tell because he has diabetes and Cushing's as well. So I think naturally he's kind of at the end of his time here. I don't think the attacks helped. Right. I know, obviously trying to regulate his blood sugar after the attacks was very difficult. And then the stress added into it with the Cushing's disease it was a lot. But I have a great vet, and they were incredibly supportive. Wonderful. Do you want to give a shout out to them? Oh yeah, that's the Barrington Animal Hospital. Wonderful. Dr. Harrington. Yeah, the dogs have been with him since they were both puppies. So, and I'll show you Charlie too. Okay. And Charlie came along after the fact. He's the young one. Yeah, he's the young one. So he's about almost 2 years old. Oh, hi, Charlie. Yeah. Yeah, and he enjoyed the scavenger hunt at the mall very much. Yes, I remember. Yeah. Yeah. So.
Well, Christine, I mean, I just have to give you a huge thanks for, persevering, taking on this enormous challenge, which I'm sure at times seemed so much bigger than you. I think it's fantastic that you were able to put this amazing team of people together. But thank you to you for pushing forward and never giving up. Not only for your sweet dogs, but for the rest of us who maybe at some day or at some time may come across a problem similar, whether it's divorce or just with the health and well-being of dogs. And there is no law to protect because we know the laws, especially in New Hampshire, there's so much that needs to be done. But to let people know that, it can be done. Christine did prove that. And thankfully, Jack will have hopefully a few more years of very good quality of life in Christine's home with his sister and his brother. So just thank you from the bottom of my heart for what you've done. And I hope that, as we help to spread your message to others as well, there is a glimmer of hope for other people who may be struggling with this or saying, oh, God, I'm one person. What can I do? Well, let me tell you about Christine.
Well, I mean, thank you for giving this a platform. It was my sister, Emily, who actually encouraged me to do this. And I think I had after I got to the end of the process, I was kind of exhausted. I wasn't ready to really get out there and talk about it. I was just tired.
Yeah.
But I do think it's important. You may have a neighbor or a friend, or you may just hear a conversation and can add to it. Hey, I think there might be a law to help you.
Yep.
Help get that message out. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Happy to be that platform. And guys, again, if you're listening and you know somebody that could hear this message or needs to be connected with Christine, let us know. But you can also share this replay. It's also on our YouTube channel. But please, if you know people who need to hear this message, send it out there and let's spread the love and the help and make sure that these dogs get the support from us that they need. So bye, Jack. Bye, Penny. Bye, Charlie. I hear you. We love you. Sorry. I think it's time to go. It's their time now. Thank you again, Christine. I look forward to keeping in touch with you.
Absolutely. Thank you,
All
Tracy.
right, have a great day. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.